Hello, warriors. Welcome to the U Movement, and goodbye, Arwen. I am B, and wow, like what is going on this awakening journey? It's all kinds of crazy. I'm testing a whole new system with this arm and a microphone, and so I'm hoping the sound quality of this turns out okay for you. That would be great. Um, yeah, So the last few days have been up, down, and then up. I've been on a consistent, steady up since yesterday afternoon, and that's the longest I've been up in years, and also sober. Like to be up with no alcohol that made me up, no weed that made me up, no manipulation or people necessarily that made me up because I've been like still like on my own. But I wanted to share something that happened because we're going to get into some woo woo today. Okay, people have been asking me for a little bit more woo woo, and I'm like, yeah, I'll get there eventually when I feel a little bit more comfortable. Like, you know, but so today we're going to talk a little woo woo, a little bit of some of the stuff that I've been doing for the last 4 years, and it all began yesterday. Well, it didn't all begin yesterday, but my story began yesterday. Is one of the treatments that I've been getting because I personally believe on this awakening journey that body work is up there as probably the most important stuff to be doing. Even more so than like meditation and a lot of other spiritual practices. I think getting into our body, getting into the soma, that's where all the trauma is stored. So the more body work that we do, the more healing, like really traumatic healing that occurs. So I've been doing a lot of body work for 6 solid years. And because of that, I have healed like it's crazy. The shit that I've healed. I've healed things that doctors said could never be healed. And I've healed them. So I have because I kept doing the body work. And I get like into the muscles. I get really into the muscles and I do a lot of trigger point therapy. I do it almost every single day. And there's some areas you just can't do yourself. You just can't because you'll wuss out when the pain comes. And when I moved, I discovered not 5 minutes from my house is a woman who does, now excuse me if I mispronounce this, my Chinese isn't up there, but it's called Tuina massage, which is a Chinese, like traditional Chinese style of massage, which is similar to like a Thai massage, if you've ever had one of those. But these things hurt. This isn't like I'm gonna go and feel pleasure and like, oh, this is tingly sensation. It's not a Swedish massage, okay? The Swedes like to be gentle, where the Chinese are like, let's get in there and like solve some problems. So she does this style of massage, and like she gets into areas of your body that will have you screaming and feel a little bit like a cat jumping up and like climbing onto the roof. Um, it gets intense. It gets exceptionally intense, and she's able to get into areas that I can't do on my own. So I have set myself up since I moved here with one of these massages per month, because that's about as much as you can like. It's not something you want to do like every single week or something like that. That's about as much as my body, because there's like a lot of integration that has to happen afterwards. And I went yesterday for one of these massages that, as far as I'm concerned, are the best massages I've ever had in my entire life. And that's saying something. She was working on my legs. And luckily, I have with all my body workers, all the practitioners that I go to, I always give them like a forewarning that I'm weird and that I speak like language and that I release emotions and I might cry on their table. And like I give them the like disclosure, full disclosure. You're dealing with somebody with a Kundalini awakening, and I got wackadoodle stuff that I do. And for the most part, all of them have been like really good, except for one acupuncturist that made me feel awkward and uncomfortable, and I just stopped going to him. That's how that went down. But she was like, oh, I just think it's so cool. You speak light language. I want to know all about that. How did that happen? And so we're chatting away on the table because it's not something that you're necessarily, well, except when she goes into deep places, you need to kind of like focus your attention. So she is working my back and lots clearing, and it's great and good. And then she gets down into my legs, and I'm like in agony, like a new level of pain, but it's good pain. It's like, she's getting into areas that I can't get into. And as she does, I start speaking light language. And when I say speaking, I should say I start screaming light language. Like I'm like full on channeling. Because what she's doing is she's releasing energetically something that I have carried with me, I'm going to say, for 500 years. People are going to be like, what? You're not 500 years old. Well, how do you know? Okay? How do you know? I've been around on this planet a long time on the recycling wheel that is the reincarnation karma wheel. And on your awakening path, you're not just clearing this lifetime's karma. You're clearing many lifetimes karma. And I've had a lot of experiences already of clearing past life stuff. So I'm on the table and I am channeling and I am screaming, and she's just keeping going, which is great. That's exactly what she needs to do. And I'm getting downloaded with these visions. And what is coming through to me is I am seeing this old man, and he is a monk or a friar, priest. I don't know what they call them in Italian, living in northern Italy. And it's about 500 years ago. I can see him clearly. And that is who I am channeling. So this is ancestral energy that I am channeling. Goes back in my ancestral line. And his legs, and so hence why I'm screaming, because she's rubbing my legs. His legs are a gnarly mess. He either has like rickets or gout, like big hard nodules with his deformity on his feet. And he's quite angry, this guy, this ancestor of mine. He is quite angry about the situation because he's dedicated his life to God. And so he thinks of himself as a very godly man. And so this condition that he has to be some sort of like witchcraft, right? You'll remember 500 years ago, we had a lot of witch burnings, right? And so the next energy that I'm channeling is that of an older woman, a hag kind of energy, that said to him at some stage, I place a curse upon you. Now, people back then, with the knowledge they knew at the time in regards to like medical knowledge, was limited. And because of that, when people are in a state of fear, and you combine fear with an ignorance of knowledge, those two things create a perfect storm to believe stuff. And I've been talking a lot about vulnerability and gullibility in my last couple of videos a little bit, because that's kind of the energy that I've been clearing, right? So I'm coming to the apex of a lot of this ancestral stuff that I'm clearing. And he believed that. So he became very judgmental and thus became the birthplace of the witch wound in my ancestral line. Now, many of us carry with us a witch wound, as well as a religious wound. So these two ancestral energies of this old woman who's cursing him because he's done something judgmental towards her, there's a hatred between them, have carried on in my family line as this religious abuse and witch wound, So maybe she was a witch. Maybe she was an old woman that like knew the plants and knew this and that, and he participated in having her arrested, having her thrown in jail, and hurting her family in the name of God, because this is how war is started. This is this harmony between people is like, I'm in pain and I'm suffering and it must be your fault. I'm going to project it outwards. So he had a medical condition that he projected outwards and it must have been her fault. And so put her to death, put her in the fire. And so what I was realizing is I felt nothing but compassion for this man as well as this woman, because I could see myself in both of them. And I could also see how this wounding transmuted through generations and generations to land with my grandmother, who was, and grandfather, who were Christian scientists. They didn't believe in medical. They were like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to pray for the situation. And so when my mother was young and had a car accident that was very bad, instead of providing her with medical care, they prayed, right? So this wounding, this ancestral belief that you can't trust those outside of us, we can only trust in God, we need to be judgmental about anybody who thinks differently, caused a wound in my mother so severe that she herself became very judgmental, very critical, very cruel, as she polarized herself into the other polarity, which is like all spirituality is evil and bad, wrong. And so me, who was born with this inquisitive nature and wanted to know, it became unsafe in my house. So witch wounds activated again. Don't be acting all witchy and weird and freaky, because that's going to draw attention to yourself. It's unsafe. So carrying this wound is my job in my generation to clear the ancestral trauma and bring peace to it, so that it doesn't get passed on. Okay, so that's one of the things that we're doing. We're clearing our trauma, and I've talked in probably 900 videos of my own personal trauma. But where does trauma come from? Yes, sometimes it comes directly and we can see it through the lens of this relationship in this lifetime. But as the more awakening and aware that we become, that we have many lifetimes that go beyond that, we see the history that leads us back in time, in this case, over 500 years ago, to the origination of this wound. And in so doing, it creates a greater degree of compassion and understanding and forgiveness. And I can actually feel compassion for my mother, because the poor woman was prayed over instead of given to a doctor after she was in a car accident and was in a lot of pain. I can feel compassion and understanding for this man who, had dedicated his life to God and was suffering with this malady that he didn't understand. And when he didn't understand, he believed easily, because he was gullible and ignorant in the awareness that he had therefore been cursed. And so he projected outwards his judgment onto others out of fear. And she projected her anger and hostility and rage. This woman who is in my mind's eye, this Hagen character, that, was like, I curse you for what you've done. And so there is compassion that I feel towards these people, because I'm now in a place of understanding that I wouldn't have been in 6 years ago, because I too have suffered a physical malady in this life that I didn't have answers to. I went everywhere trying to find answers and solutions to my mouth pain. I lost 3 teeth. I went to 6 dentists. I went to a homeopathy. I went to an endodontist. I went to a periodontist. I went to an oral surgeon. I went to a neurologist. I went to a neurosurgeon. And I went to a family doctor. And I went to an ENT doctor. I got bone scans. I got MRIs. I got thermal imaging. I spent a fortune on treatments trying to find the root cause of this problem. And when I came up empty-handed, and when I came up with no answers to why that I was suffering, my mind, in this Kundalini awakening process, began to project outwards that somebody must be doing this to me, that I am a targeted individual. And I even talked a lot about this, but my dark night of the soul was dark. Okay, it was very, very dark, and I was experiencing terror abjunct terror, the likes that nobody had seen. And I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know where to go, and I didn't know who to turn to because I had done all the things that you're normally supposed to do, but I wasn't getting any relief. One person's telling me that I have trigeminal neuralgia, another person's telling me that they can do brain surgery, another person's telling me that my teeth are fine, another person's telling me I have Nico, another person's telling me that I have a fungal infection, and I'm like, which one is it? Which one is it? I was taken for a ride. I spent money that I didn't have on treatments that did nothing because in the fear, I was vulnerable and gullible and easily led astray. And my mind was open because of the Kundalini awakening to look for answers in obscure places. And I'm like, well, if this person doesn't know what's happening to me and that person doesn't know what's happening to me and they're supposed to be the specialists, I'm going to do my own investigation work. I'm going to go down some rabbit holes and some conspiracy theories. That was the absolute worst thing that I could have done. It was like planting the seeds of fear into like fertile soil, which is our mind. And our minds on Kundalini awakenings are quick to take on information and take it as truth. But the problem with that is it's not necessarily truth when it's fear. Fear is 9 times, 100 times out of 10, not the truth. It's the opposite of truth. Truth comes from a place of stillness. It comes from a place of peace. It comes from something that you feel inside of it that's just a tingling and a knowing. Whereas fear whispers in your ear continually lies. Somebody is doing this to you. Somebody is trying to hurt you. This is something's amiss, which only creates more fear. And it only creates more judgment. So I became terrified, absolutely terrified of medical doctors. To the point where I haven't seen one. Not for a while, although I was forced to go see one and get some blood work done just this year, which was terrifying to me. I used to go to the dentist with a Bible on my chest, pointing outwards at them as if my Bible was going to protect me. And so I can see the progression of this lineage, this wounding that I've been trying to clear for years in this awakening process. And to finally have the visualization, to be clearing it. So as I speak light language, people have asked me routinely, can you translate it? And no, not as in, I'm not Google Translate. So I'm speaking in tongues, talking in tongues, or otherwise known as light language, same thing. And what I'm doing is I'm clearing an ancestral wound. I'm channeling that ancestor as this is coming out. It has happened on multiple occasions throughout the last few years. And as I do, I get the gist of what's going on. It's like clearing this and clearing that. So a lot of what I've been clearing as ancestors that are healers. And so they have healed collectively. And so it gets a little bit crowded sometimes in my bedroom. So it's kind of a good thing that I've been in isolation and alone, because a lot of people would think that I'm absolutely crazy what I'm going through. And it looks a little bit like this. I'll get a wave of feeling that comes over me that's like an aura. And I've never had a seizure, but it's what I would assume a seizure feels like, in the sense of there's a lot of people have talks about, pre-seizure, there's a weird feeling that comes that they know something's off. And that's what it's like. Of course, I've never had a seizure, and I don't want to speak on something that I don't know, but like a weird feeling comes and I'm like it feels like anxiety for me, because my egoic self was carrying the witch wound. My egoic self was like, you don't want to do weird stuff. You don't want to talk in light language. You don't want to do spontaneous healings. You don't want to draw attention to yourself. This shit gets you killed. That's the programming that lies deep within our subconscious mind. And so as this wave of feeling comes over me and I begin channeling, it's like the me that is me, the egoic version of me, gets booted out of me and is over here in fear. And I am channeling this energy that is helping to clear whatever ancestral wound is coming up. This version of me is freaking the fuck out. Because it's not as bad as it was, but like when it first started 3 years ago, when I first started doing light language and started every single night, by 6 o'clock, I was in bed because I knew I was going to have another clearing, and I knew another one was coming over me. So I would go upstairs to my room. I have no doubt that my soul kids were like, "What does she do in there all the time?" But I would go into my room, I would work with my body, I would work with the trigger point therapy, and like I would get into the sore places. And as I was getting into the sore places, this wave of energy would come over and I'd begin channeling any number of different energies. I began to get used to some of the regular ones that would come and visit me. Some healers that I work with, ancestral healers, as we were clearing woundings, trauma woundings from this lifetime, as well as many lifetimes before. And sometimes it was very obvious to know where the wounding came from, where on the planet the past life I was visiting or seeing. Like there was many in France, there were some in the Roman times, Atlantean times. Like I've traveled back in time to like many, many lifetimes, as well as this lifetime, and this lifetime was some of the worst stuff that came up. And so as I am in the channeling, sometimes I use tools. I have thumpers that I use, but I used to just like clear, especially when I was clearing the chest. Like clear, clear, clear. I'm trying to like get this energy, this dense energy that's inside of my body somewhere out. We want it out. And every time that it gets out, I get lighter and brighter. You've been watching me over 6 years get lighter and brighter because the density that has been in my body that I've been carrying with me for lifetimes is clearing, is getting out, and that it gets out. And there's only so many ways dense energy can leave your body. Screaming, crying, vomiting, defecating, and so it needs to go. So when you are clearing dense energy, it's a good thing. If you're sweating, if it's like there's releases happening that you're making guttural sounds, you may be vomiting like actual vomit, which is why I learned early on when I'm doing a lot of deep healing work, I don't eat. Because I don't really particularly like vomiting. So if I have to vomit up energy, it's a lot easier. And there's been times when I've been like vomiting up like pure energy on the floor is the only way I can describe it. There was one time I was like vomiting up black smoke. Now there wasn't actually black smoke there, but I could see in my mind's eye black smoke. Now, many people might think I'm totally wackadoodles. Many people do. That's okay. I don't give a fuck anymore because I've cleared the witch wound. I know in this lifetime you can't burn me at the stake, right? That's not something that's allowed anymore. You can't nail me to a cross. You can't, there's not even like institutions in this country anymore. They don't know what to do with people anymore except medicate them, right? And they tried that, didn't work. So there is nothing that anybody can actually do to me. Of course, it took me a very long time to figure that out because when you carry a persecution wound, which is if I show up in my authentic self, if I speak my truth, if I share with the world my gifts, if I, start making a healing garden that like, oh my God, I'm going to be persecuted. I'm going to be institutionalized. I'm going to be murdered. I'm going to be drawn and quartered. I'm going to be tortured. We have memory of this that's embedded into us. And so part of our healing journey is learning to stand in our power. And power has been like left the building a long time ago with me, and coming back into my power is what's happening in this moon. now. This is what I've been calling it. And so I went to this healing circle with a bunch of wonderful witchy women that I wouldn't have been able to do maybe even like a couple of weeks ago, because the fear and the anxiety of the witch wound that was coming up for clearing was still present in my auric field. And when I began clearing it out and said, right, I'm going to this, that allowed me to be me. They even said to me, it was amazing, in this community of women, everybody introduced themselves. And when it got to me, I was like, hi, I haven't been around humans in like a long time. So bear with me. This is really new to me. I've been living like a hermit for a number of years, and I do weird shit. So I clear energy, and while I'm here in the circle with you, beautiful women, I might cry. I might start speaking in like language, and that's who I am. I'm putting it out there. I'm letting myself feel safe. And their response was, wave your freak flag, girl. You know, let your freak flag fly. And I was like, woo, damn straight. This is a safe place for me to be. My inner witch, that hag energy, was now safe to be herself in this group of women. And then yesterday, while I'm getting this massage and it's clearing out, so energetically, she's literally pushing out dense energy through the muscles. And I'm allowing myself to vocalize, which is allowing myself to release the energy. And it's coming out. And as it does, I'm feeling lighter and lighter and lighter. And I'm like almost like floating by the end of this. And I said to her, I'm going to go and integrate now. And she's like, great. After you finish integrating, you come on back here and we're going to go for a walk, because we're going to talk about some healing circles that you and I are going to run here in this resort. And I'm like, yes, we are. I'm laughing because I'm like, this just couldn't be. Like, what is happening? Talk about timeline shifts. I go from living like a hermit to hanging out with a bunch of witchy women. And now I'm meeting contact that wants to do actual work here. We've got a space that would be an amazing space to do retreats. So we want to go and talk about that. So I go back to her house, and where I have dinner at somebody's house, and I have conversation with her, and I have conversation with her husband, that it felt like fine, like flowing, like I had moved myself up out of one reality and dumped myself into a totally different dimension in 24 hours. Like, the timeline shift that occurred in such a short period of time is astronomical. Like, the last 4 days, and it started with, I went to see an osteopath, and the osteopath was clearing a lot for me because I was deep in ego death just 3 to 4 days ago. I don't even know what day it was that I went to see her. I think it was Wednesday. So Wednesday, I'm deep in ego death, and Sunday, I'm flying higher than I've been in years. In fact, I don't even know if I've ever been this high. I really don't think so, because it's not high like a forced high, like a high that's brought on by like drugs or anything like that. It is, I woke up this morning and I'm like, hello world, like absence of fear, complete absence of fear. And I've carried with me fear, like the worst fear that you can possibly imagine for the last 3 years. Like, terror is gone. It's like just gone. Like, I'm not saying it's not going to come back and there's not more fear lingering around in here, but like, it's gone. And I'm like, hello trees, hello Canada geese, hello ducks, I'm in heaven, this is my best life, I have friends, I have people texting me, I have invitations for dinners, I am in talks of like facilitating healing circles, which is what I was put on this planet to do. Creative energy is flowing into me. I posted 2 videos today. I'm like, what is going on? Like I can't even, like, I can't even. Like, yes, this journey has been bipolar, and there have been moments of like, but nothing like this. You truly have to go down into the darkest of depths and face your worst fears that you can possibly imagine, that you have been carrying with for thousands of years, and transmute all that. And the deeper down into hell that you go, the higher up into the land of miracles. Like, this is nothing short of miraculous. Who I was and who I am now, what I was living like and what I am living like now, where I was living, what I was dealing with, what, like, it's miraculous. It is nothing short of miraculous. Like, my love for God right now is astronomical. I didn't even say the word God 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? I was like, the universe is lovely to me. I had zero relationship with God because there had been a long history of God being a dirty word in my house. And that was because there was a long history of God being the only way, judgmental God in my mother's house. It wasn't the God that is my God. It was a distortion. Just like there was so many other distortions that people have had to endure through religious institutions that said God is someone to fear. If you don't do it this way, then you're doing it wrong. If you don't negate your personal power and give it to somebody else, even Jesus, then you're doing it wrong. And that's exactly the polar opposite of what Jesus was trying to teach. Jesus was trying to say, hey, I know the way, follow me. He wasn't trying to say, sacrifice yourself to me. That's not what the messages were. And so there's been this crazy distortion that has happened that has caused thousands of years of cultural trauma, that these religious abuses that have occurred, in this distortion of what God is, where God is located, and how one can access God, because the journey is within. The heaven and hell is within. I've been in so many layers of hell over the last 6 years, transmuting through this awakening process. It's like, I think it was Dante that says there's 7 layers of hell. It certainly felt like more than that, to be honest with you. You'd go into one level of hell and the shadowy places for a period of time, and then you'd come up and get a little bit of a breather, and then down you go. It reminds me of the story of Persephone, the Greek goddess Persephone, who went to the depths of hell, married Hades. Well, that's not fun. And then had to spend 6 months of the year there and then come up. So is the story of Persephone a resource for the divine feminines that are on this wackadoodles twin flame journey, or Kundalini awakening, ascension path, whatever you want to call it, that have done deep shadow work, like deep shadow work. And it's not by choice. It was not by choice that I ended up marrying a narcissistic man that put me through hell, marrying my own Hades. Was it foreshadowing that when I was 12 years old, I was doing storytelling about a story about the girl that danced with the devil? I think so. I kind of laugh at that. But I had to do that, just like Persephone. And then Persephone escapes out and goes to the higher realms. And then she goes back down. And then she comes back up. So all these layers of hell that I've had to walk, and many of us, I'm not alone, the hell that is your health crisis. That's a hell. That's a hell. If you're in physical pain that is so bad that you can barely focus on anything else, that's a hell. The hell that is escaping from abuse. Many of us, too many of us, have had that initiation. That's a layer of hell. Legal battles. How about that one? How about that hell? That one's a terrible hell. What about financial manipulation? What about that? What about being gaslit and manipulated? What about loss of family, of friends, of support structures? What about all those hells? What about the hell of walking through alone, in isolation, in your hermit phase, in your monkdom? You know, is there a past life in your life where you made a vow of poverty? Or in a past life that you made a vow of chastity? Or in a past life that you made a vow and in this life you're here to clear it? Because the path to God is not vowing to do something that's so like absolute, thinking in absolutes all the time. And so we're here to find balance, collapse duality, collapse judgment. I realize now how judgmental a person I am. I always thought I was absolved of that sin because I was judging judgers. You know, I see your judgment, that's bad. Well, I'm just reflecting the same thing. And so this is going to be a life lesson for me right now to integrate over the next couple of months of how judgment has played out in my life. And how I can like clear that wounding, the wounding that is judgment. Because the lesson is, you know, judge not lest thee be judged. So there's amazing teachings in the Bible, in the Quran, in the, you know, any other text out there, any other religious text out there that people use, spiritual text. But be aware, there's also distortions. There is also distortions within that. And when we look to others to say, hey, what is the truth? And somebody else says, give me money and I'm going to give you the truth. There's distortions. So where are the distortions playing out in your life in this crazy full moon energy? Because what needs to happen right now is to clear out. So write down all the things that you don't want to exist in your reality anymore. Poverty consciousness, isolation, struggle, pain. Yeah, what is it? What is it that wants to go? And then what is it that you want to replace it with? And then write them down and burn it. Burn the things you don't want and call in the things you do in this moon energy. So when I was at this women's circle, I wrote down, so they gave me a pad of paper and I was sitting there going, okay, well, I don't want any more of that. I don't want any more of that. I don't want any more of that. I had like a bundle. I made them into little like crackers and I like went up to the fire and I was like, I'm ready to let go of all this shit. You know, fear, anxiety, panic, paranoia. Fuck that. All of those things are fear. I'm not buying into the fear that you're selling me. I don't care who you are. I don't care what power you have. I don't care how many letters you have after your name. I don't care. If you're going to sell me snake oil, then you can fuck off. Throw it into the fire. As I throw this into the fire, I throw away my gullibility. I throw away my vulnerability, and I'm going to stand in my own personal power. This whole journey has been me becoming me. That's why it's called the You Movement. You know, it's transformed. It's had many names. We started with the Unfucking movement because I was unfucking my life. And then it moved into the You Movement because it felt like I did a U-turn on my life. And then it turned into the You Movement because it's about you. It's about me. You know, like it's about returning to who we truly are. So who I truly am is this crazy person that does very weird shit, like talk light language with my hands and talk light language with my mouth, speaking in tongues. Right? I channel my messages. I don't write them down. I don't know what I'm going to say before I say them. And still, I manage to make hour-long videos as stuff comes through me. I do spontaneous healings. They look violent. It is something that I'm probably going to be doing on camera at some stage, and I'm like, I'm going to have to get used to that. Or doing in front of people as I stand in a collective of energy. I am an empath. I feel everything. Oftentimes I feel like an air filtration system or a dehumidifier that's taking in dense energy and processing it for other people. Did I want to do any of those things? No. No, I did not. I was not all like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to be a divine channel. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. I thought Oracle was cool. I didn't even know I could do it until somebody said to me, I think you're an Oracle. And I was like, I think you might be right. I didn't know I had the gift of telepathy because I shut that down. And when people used to gaslight me, I used to shut that gift down. And even though I had visions and I knew stuff and I'd ask and then I'd be said, that's not true. Why would you think like that? Don't be so dramatic. That's not what's happening. And now I look back and I see things that I saw and I was like, I knew all along. I knew all along. I knew all along my husband was in an affair. But of course I was gaslit. I wanted to believe in the goodness. I was gullible and vulnerable. And so I got to get rid of the gullible and the vulnerable and stand in my personal power and trust my gifts and own my gifts and appreciate my gifts and utilize my gifts because God gave me those gifts. It's not what my ego would have wanted. Your gifts are going to be something that's going to make you walk through all the levels of hell to obtain them, to use them, because you have to face your fears. And fear is the worst. It's absolutely the worst. And sure, I could feed your fear and tell you all kinds of things of what it is and why you feel like that and why you're having anxiety and like put names and titles on it. And if you just send me 5 easy payments of $9.99, I can clear your ancestral shame and the curse that you're carrying. But I'm not going to do that because I'm going to tell you that you're powerful and you can heal that shit. Whatever you are in is your training ground for you to stand in your power and be you. You are more powerful than the thoughts. You are more, I know it doesn't mean it's easy. I'm not going to say it's easy. And I'm not just going to say, and just change your thoughts, just change your thinking. That's something I've worked on for years, is to get to a place where I'm like, you are lying to me. You are lying to me. You are lying to me. I am going to trust God. And so I have been, even in the last 2 days, I choose God. I don't choose to believe you. I do not choose to believe these lies that you are telling me. And whether one person's, off with you, Satan, fuck off. I rebuke you. I rebuke you. Not today, Satan. Not today, energy. Not today, thinking. Not today, any framework that anybody else wants to put. I am more powerful. The power is derived from within. Yes, do I like using sage and burning nice incense? Absolutely. Do I like my crystals? But ultimately, I am the power that uses these are just tools. I am not going to be afraid to do oracle reads because people have judged me for that. I am not going to be afraid to use my power of Reiki because people have said that that's witchcraft. It's not. And even if it was witchcraft, what is witchcraft? What is it you are afraid of? You are afraid of somebody who has knowledge about how to use plants? What are you afraid of? Because we have to step into our power. And that is what I'm calling in this moon with absolutely everything so that I can fully be what I was meant to be and set out to be in this lifetime. I don't want to do this shit again. This is my last kick at the can. I'm not doing reincarnation again. Thanks. I'm solving all these problems in this lifetime until I don't know, fly away with my own wings. Okay? Look, here we go. These are my wings. They're coming in. Am I woo-woo? Damn straight. You don't understand me? That's okay too. You don't have to watch me if you don't understand me. You don't like me? There's an off button. I'm not forcing myself into anybody's house, and I'm not forcing myself onto anybody. But if you want my help, I am here, and all you have to do is ask. The first rule of the angelic kingdom is you need to ask. So if people want my help, I am here to help. That is what I'm here to do. Just ask. Join the group meetings and ask. Set up a one-on-one with me and ask. Have some problems with your body? Ask. Emotions? Ask. Mental stuff? Ask. I'm not going to give you the same answers and the same rigmarole that everybody else is going to give you, because I'm not going to give you any more bullshit. I'm going to tell you what worked and what didn't work for me, because I've been searching on this wounded healer's path for the way out of suffering for over 30 years. And I can tell you the final way out of suffering was through suffering, was to feel it fully. And I thank Craig Holiday for that. So there are many great teachers out there, and there are many snake oil salesmen. There are many things that you are vulnerable to. Buyer beware. Ultimately, you are your guru. Listen to your body. That is where all of the roots, cause of any issue resides. It's in the body. We need to have a relationship with our own body and start listening to our nervous system when it tells us we are safe and when we're not safe. We need to have a relationship with our body when it's acting up and it's got a disorder or a disease or an illness or anything else, a malady of some kind, and get into that and give ourselves what we seek from outside of ourselves. So what do I need right now, body? Oh, I really need to be hugged. Okay, we're going to hug and we're going to grieve and we're going to this. What do I need right now, body? I need food. I don't need food. You know? And so when we start to listen to our body, we let go of the indoctrination that we've been told that, oh, we need to eat 3 meals a day. I haven't eaten 3 meals in I can't remember how long, because I listen to my body. Sometimes my body wants a meal. Sometimes my body wants more than 1 meal. Sometimes my body wants no meals at all, and I naturally go into a fasting state, usually right before I go into ego death, because my body doesn't want to deal with 2 things at the same time, and trying to rest and digest is the opposite of trying to process through trauma. So I listen to my body and I give my body what it wants. And there is always signals that I knew I was coming out of ego death, because all of a sudden I'm craving potatoes. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Craving some grounding vegetables. Sleep? I listen to my body. Sometimes my body wants to sleep at 6 p.m. Sometimes my body wants to sleep at 2 in the morning. Sometimes my body doesn't want to sleep, and I'm up all night working on a website because I have energy to do that. Who says that you need to live your life according to the indoctrination of rules and structures and thought patterns and behaviors and beliefs? Who says? Listen to your body. Listen, Linda. Listen, Linda. Listen to your body. The way to God is through your body. The way to peace is through your body. The way to love is through your body. Whatever it is you want is through your body. You have to get grounded into your body. Otherwise, you go to Lala like I did 3 years ago in fear. Overwhelming fear. Because I was out of my body. I was up here trying to open my third eye too fast. And I had experiences that I wouldn't want anyone to have. So don't be in such a rush to get high. Stay low. Stay low for as long as it takes, because when you get here where I'm at today, and I'm not going to stay here eternally, I'm sure I'm going to go low again, but today I felt blissful. I felt peace. I felt power. I felt creativity. I felt joy. I felt laughter. I put on my old 70s music playlist and I'm like dancing to like David Bowie and Led Zeppelin and I'm doing the dishes and I'm being productive and I'm feeling great. Why? Because I went low. I went low and I went low and I went low. I went low and I kept going low and I stayed low. And I stayed low for years until eventually it started clearing out. And like, I wouldn't believe in a million years how miraculous it feels to all of a sudden have community show up and all of a sudden have like partnerships show up in the form of like offers to work together. I've wanted this for years to have this little cottage on a lake. Like, it's beyond heavenly. And I know it's only a matter of time before my dreams come to fruition. I've been plugging away at this. Even my YouTube, I've been plugging away at this for 4 years, right? I'm lucky. I'm going to be honest and tell you, I'm lucky if I make $100 a month. Okay. That's considered lucky. And that's like, so if you want to like divide up $100 a month by how many videos I put out, I'm making sense. I'm not doing this for the money. I've never done this for the money because I would have given up if it was just about money. I have a passion. I can't not do it. It's like brushing your teeth or showering. I have to. Well, even those I don't really like doing those. So like, it's more like eating. You have to do it. I have to do this. I'm motivated by passion for doing this for God, for people, to help. Every single person that has said to me, you know, oh my God, I wouldn't have made it through my dark night of the soul without you. That's why I do it. That's why I'm obsessively doing it. The passion in me is like, so for me to see signs after 4 years of chipping away at getting nowhere, you know, like my growth has been like very slow. It takes persistence. It takes discipline. It takes insanity to just keep plugging away at a mission that's not seemingly getting you anywhere. In fact, it's also getting you like negative and hostility and like people gossiping about you behind your back, like your family, and sending emails like complaining about you. You know, it got me everything I didn't want, which was a whole bunch of negative attention and people saying nasty shit about me, which was my greatest fear. It's my fear of judgment. You have to face each fear as it comes and just follow. I don't know what's coming next, but I can feel it. I can feel it in my body. Like my body is now I'm so in tune with my body that my body is like all tingly in a good way. Not in a Kundalini, oh my God, I'm being electrocuted way, but in a good way. My body feels alive. And the more alive my body feels, the more expansion my body feels, the less contraction and fear and anxiety, panic my body feels, the more I'm drawing in the opportunities that like never in a million years would I have pictured myself here having dinner with the owners of a resort that want to do business with me and see my value. They see me. People see me now. I've been invisible for a very long time, and I wouldn't have believed it if the evidence was like, until the evidence was right in my face. I walked a path of a lot of doubt for a long time. But blind faith, baby, you are looking at a convert. I have blind faith. in spades. So with that said, I'm sending my love out to absolutely everybody who's on this path. I know how insanely difficult it is. Do not suffer alone. There is no need for that. We have lots of groups. We have the Spiritual Warrior Support Group on Facebook. You can join and talk to an entire community of people there. It's free. It's Facebook. We have the Spiritual Warrior Support Groups on Wednesday and Friday evenings that are now on Google Meet, and we discuss and have an open conversation as a safe, private, unfilmed container. We have one-on-one meetings with me that you can book and discuss some of the stuff that you might feel a little too uncomfortable talking with somebody else about. And I can hold space for that. With that all said, peace in.